We now know that there are no legally valid or historically valid reasons to prevent Donald Trump's former national security advisor, the non-indicted one, John Bolton, from testifying in the Senate impeachment trial. We suspect that there are at least a couple of Republican votes in favor of John Bolton testifying. We don't yet know whether there will be 51 total votes. Republicans are absolutely panicking that the testimony that John Bolton might give could, quote, open the floodgates, according to Republican sources who spoke to Axios. Yesterday, I told you that in John Bolton's upcoming book, he just says, Trump personally told me withhold the aid to Ukraine until Ukraine smears Joe Biden publicly. So when you hear from different Trump attorneys speculating that there was not conditionality, that there was not pressure, whatever, and that they have no firsthand witnesses saying otherwise, John Bolton would be such a firsthand witness. He would say, presumably, if he tells the same story that he tells in his book, Trump came to me and said, hold the aid until we get these investigation announcements. Republicans have said endlessly they want firsthand sources, but they are working to block a firsthand source like John Bolton. So first and foremost is the question of whether 4 Republican senators will vote to bring Bolton in to testify. We dealt with that in the last segment. Then there is part 2 of this. Axios is reporting that Republican sources tell them party leaders and the White House are going to try to resist witnesses altogether, including Bolton, because as one aide put it, quote, there is a sense in the Senate that if one witness is allowed, the floodgates are open. If Bolton says stuff that implicates, say, Mick Mulvaney or Mike Pompeo, then calls for them to testify will intensify, as they should. That is exactly right. What arguments will Republicans make against the testimony of Bolton when it comes up? There's going to be a few things. One, we already heard. I played a clip earlier of Senator John Barrasso. They will say, you know, we're doing a lot here. We've got 24 hours on one side, 24 hours from the other side, 16 hours of questions. We'll decide later, do we really need to hear more stuff in general, making the argument that just looking at the clock, like just the number of hours that they've done this, would suggest they don't need to hear from witnesses. That's a fact-free assessment. They will argue that what Bolton has to say won't change the primary facts. Now, of course, that's not true. John Bolton would be a firsthand witness who would be able to testify personally. Trump told me, withhold the aid until they announce the investigations. They will say the aid, which was paused, not withheld, was ultimately released, and nobody ended up publicly smearing Joe Biden. Now, of course, that happened because they got caught and they scrambled to clean it up, but Republicans will still use that as an argument. They will say the Ukrainian president has said there was no pressure on him to announce these investigations and that the phone call didn't mention a specific quid pro quo, so we don't need to hear from John Bolton. Of course, John Bolton would still be a firsthand witness who could tell us exactly what Trump said, but that also ignores how politics works, right? These things aren't made explicit in phone calls between the CEOs or the presidents. It is all discussed and pushed behind the scenes by people like Rudy Giuliani and others. Now, of course, every single one of those talking points is easily debunkable, and it runs directly counter to the Republican complaints about we want firsthand witnesses and we don't have them. But they are still going to make the strongest case possible to prevent Bolton from testifying because they know it would be a disaster. So let's hear from everybody under oath. Let's hear from everybody in public. And then let's see whether the impending Republican acquittal makes sense based on the facts. The degree of obstruction that is taking place when it comes to the impeachment trial is becoming a bigger and bigger story. I got emails yesterday from a few of you saying, why won't Donald Trump testify? Shouldn't Donald Trump have to testify in his own impeachment trial? No, he shouldn't have to. That's not the law. Any good lawyer would probably prevent their client from testifying in equivalent circumstances. But does anybody think Donald Trump could handle under oath testimony? Donald Trump would be uncontrollably lying within minutes, if not seconds, and would perjure himself. He would likely reveal additional wrongdoing that he's not even being impeached for. Hillary could handle it. Remember, she testified, how many hours was it? Dozens of hours for the Benghazi fiasco. Trump would implode in seconds. And that may actually be an interesting narrative to try to goad Donald Trump into testifying. Remind him Hillary did it. Hillary did it. Now, the circumstances are completely different, but this is Trump we're talking about. He wants to be bigger and stronger and more powerful and braver than Hillary. Maybe you could actually get him to demand that his lawyers let him testify. Unlikely. Final note. I don't think that if Bolton testifies, Republicans vote to impeach. Okay, I've said this before. I believe if Bolton testifies, Republicans still vote to acquit, but it will be that much more embarrassing and obvious that from the get-go, acquittal was a foregone conclusion. Acquittal was what they planned to do from the beginning. They will still acquit Donald Trump, but the Bolton testimony could stick in people's minds. John Bolton publicly testifying and saying, Donald Trump personally told me, withhold the aid to Ukraine until they announce the investigations. It could influence the November election. It might help to get Donald Trump out if and when we go out to vote in 9 months. That's why it's important, not because it will get Republicans to vote to convict the guy. They're not going to do that. Make sure you're following The David Pakman Show on Instagram at David Pakman Show. Follow me at david.pakman. I posted one of the ugliest hate mails I've ever received this morning on my Instagram page at david.pakman. Check it out. We'll take a quick break and a lot more to discuss today. One of our sponsors is privacy.com. They're giving you $5 when you sign up for their completely free service at privacy.com/Pakman. I've been using Privacy for a little over a year now. You've heard me talk about it before. It's a lifesaver, and here's how it works. It takes just a couple of minutes to set up. Anytime you buy something online or on the phone, instead of actually using your real credit card number, the Privacy app and the browser plugin let you give each company a randomized virtual credit card number that you create out of thin air. It'll even autofill the card number with one click. And the payment is taken out of your checking account without the merchant ever knowing your real information. So this allows you to keep your banking information secure, but also to take control of your finances. You can create up to 12 of these virtual credit cards a month. You can set spending limits. You can freeze them. You can delete them anytime you want. So when you do this, it means you're not going to be charged when you don't want to be, because you can destroy the virtual card number right after using it, which, for instance, I love using free trials because I know I won't be charged when the trial is over if I use a virtual credit card number. You're keeping your identity private by not telling companies who you are. You're keeping your bank or credit card info protected against data breaches and identity theft. And it's free. There's no catch whatsoever. But if you want, Privacy also offers a $10 a month plan that gives you 1% cash back and lets you create 36 credit cards a month, and a $25 a month plan tailored more for small businesses where you can create 60 card numbers a month and much more. But definitely go ahead and at least get started with the free plan. You'll protect your financial info. Companies can't charge you unexpectedly. And like I said, you'll get $5 to spend when you sign up at privacy.com/Pakman.